I'd like to direct a question to the whole group. A few days ago, an opinion was publicly released by the UN Human Rights Council's Working Group on Arbitrary Detention. It was actually filed 4 months ago, but it wasn't made public until a few days ago. So it was filed before the trials began, before the ICRC was excluded from working in Azerbaijan. But this opinion sided with the Azerbaijani government against the lawyers of Ruben Vardanyan, maybe the most prominent of the 23 detainees, and considers that his case is not one of arbitrary detention. I'd like to ask all three of you, what do you make of this opinion?
Well, as you know, working group is made of independent experts. Not all of them are knowledgeable of the region, so aspects and specific challenges and conflicts. But I would say a few words from a legal standpoint. If you look at the conclusion of this working group, they have examined this case without taking consideration for the context of the case, the one that I have explained just before. That's first, but more importantly, it comes in opposition to 10 years of reports, resolution, expert opinions saying that there is real ethnic discrimination against Armenians in Azerbaijan. And so starting from the ICRC, which is the European body against racial discrimination, continuing with third, with the Committee Against Torture, which last year mentioned very strongly of course, the torture treatment of prisoners, but with a specific mention of Armenian prisoners. The European Parliament passed a few resolutions specifying this ethnic discrimination, and above all, the International Court of Justice, which is currently judging about the interstate claim from Armenia against Azerbaijan, on the basis of the International Convention on Elimination of all forms of this, racial discrimination, has adopted temporary measures precisely on recognizing there is a plausibility of racial discrimination against Armenians, and indicating these measures to protect all Armenians from this racial discrimination. And even during the debates at the International Court of Justice, Azerbaijan government has recognized some of the facts and committed to withdraw some of the measures that they had taken, especially at the end of the war in November 2020. They had created a museum in Baku, showing in a very indelicate manner, exposing the Armenians there. And Baku recognized before the court that it was inappropriate, and they withdraw what they have said, and what they have made. So even Azerbaijan government recognized this racial discrimination. So it comes to a very big surprise, that kind of opinion.
I may comment further. So it is more than 4 months old and some developments happened which are not reflected anyhow in the court's opinion. Specifically, it occurred before the transfer of Ruben Vardanyan's case to Baku military court, and blatant due process abuses, which we are raising also today. And the working group has a long set position that military courts aren't competent to try civilians, and military judges, prosecutors aren't independent or impartial to prosecute such cases. So we should be mindful of those developments which were not the situation at the moment when this opinion was given. But I would agree with Philippe that the working group disregarded the context of a conflict, and here we have a consensus within international community. Particularly, UN Security Council addressed the situation in Nagorno-Karabakh, and resolution has never gone so far to question the lawfulness of declaration of independence of Nagorno-Karabakh, or to call the international community not to recognize its declaration. And I would like to contrast this situation with other existing situations across the globe. The Cyprus situation, where Security Council Resolution 541 explicitly deplored the declaration of the Turkish Cypriot authorities as invalid. And Security Council further called upon all states not to recognize any Cypriot state other than the Republic of Cyprus. We had similar way of reaction to invalid declarations in the case of Southern Rhodesia, where it declared to call upon states not to recognize this illegal racist minority regime in Southern Rhodesia, and called all states not to entertain any diplomatic or other relations with it. So this is not the case with Nagorno-Karabakh. We even have this OSCE Minsk group, which received powers from UN Security Council to deal with the situation, and the leaders of Nagorno-Karabakh Republic were part of international talks. Moreover, this regime received financial support, including from US government and so on. So it is very logical to expect that foreign states or international organizations were providing financial support to so-called terrorist regimes. Thank you.
Okay, it worked. Just maybe to reiterate the fact that the case was considered completely in isolation without taking the context into the consideration, but also to highlight, as you mentioned, the opinion was prepared months ago, but the way that Azerbaijan's government is communicating about it is using misinterpreting, so it's about false information as well, but misinterpreting, saying that the working group has confirmed that the trials are according human rights standards and they're fair and all that. So it's also important for the international community to see how the misinterpretation works and how Azeri government is using even in this situation.